been a professor and a mental health counselor for a really long time. It doesn't feel that long, but I look back and it really is. I've had a lot of students come through my classes, and one thing I've always been interested in is they feel like they don't have permission to do what's called Christian therapy. But more importantly to me, they feel like they don't have permission to do what's called implicit and explicit integration. Implicit and explicit integration are two ways of approaching the counseling room from a Christian perspective. One is quiet, one is out loud. But it's a comment on society and the idea of secularism, or the theory or philosophy of secularism, that we've all bought into at such a deep level that my students, every time they come in, well, not every time, but a vast majority of the time that they come in, really believe that there's no way to be a Christian within a counseling room. They wouldn't say it about other professions necessarily, but specifically counseling has gotten so secular that they don't believe it. So let me tell you quickly about the difference between explicit and implicit integration. We are also going to place a description to a blog post on our website that explains this more deeply. And we'll have more conversations about this as we go along. But implicit integration is I quietly utilize my faith in the counseling room. So you can use it in a private Christian practice, you can use it in a private secular practice, you can use it in community mental health, you can use it going in home-based. I've done all of these things, and some have different levels of difficulty. But what I'm trying to say to you is implicit integration is being quiet about your faith. You're not talking about it out loud, but it doesn't stop you from praying for your clients. It doesn't stop you from asking God to give you wisdom and to guide your client in session and to be there and be what that client needs in that moment and to be present and for the Holy Spirit to guide you through all these things. You can still take full grasp of your faith in a secular counseling office and utilize it for your client's benefit. Now, I've had more success in people's lives oftentimes when I'm doing implicit integration at the community mental health office. I worked there for 8.5 years, both in-home and in their outpatient. Now, explicit you can use when you have a Christian client in a secular office or the community mental health, but it's most often used at a Christian private practice. And that is, we're going to use the Bible, we're going to use passages from the Bible specifically, we're going to talk about doctrine, we're going to talk about theology, we're going to pray out loud together, and we're going to ask the Holy Spirit to give us guidance and God to bless this client. But we're talking about it out loud because the client wants it involved. You see, the theme here is, when you go implicit or explicit, is what is the client asking you for? What kind of therapy do they want? And secular therapists get really nervous about explicit especially, but the conversation that needs to be had is, well, not the conversation, but the point that needs to be made perhaps, is that the Crusades were over years ago. And nobody really turned to a different faith willingly, and so many people ended up dead. The idea here is that we live in a society where people do not trust right away. And to throw a Bible at somebody who doesn't want it, or to pray out loud for somebody who's unaccepting of it, or to talk about doctrine to somebody who doesn't believe it, isn't necessarily helpful. It can be damaging, push them further away from Jesus, and just emotionally it can hurt them further, especially if they've been harmed by the church in the past. And so we have to meet people in specific moments with specific skill sets, and we have to be like what Paul says, all things to all people. But in this way, it's really specific. We're going to pray for our clients that do not want explicit integration quietly. We still want to bless them. But out loud to those Christian clients who want it integrated, or just clients who want it integrated in general, we're going to be very clear and bring it in.